In 1995, Oldsmobile unveiled an engine so advanced it should have saved the brand. Instead, it killed it. The Aurora V8 was a technical masterpiece. 4.0 liters. Dual overhead cams. 250 horsepower. It featured technology that wouldn't become common in American cars for another decade. Automotive journalists called it brilliant. Engineers praised its refinement. GM invested over $1 billion developing it. By 2004, Oldsmobile was dead. The Aurora V8 went with it. And the real reason why will make you question everything GM did in the 1990s. This is the story of the engine that was supposed to be Oldsmobile's salvation but became its final mistake. See, if we rewind the clock back to 1988, Oldsmobile was in serious trouble. 4 decades, Oldsmobile had been GM's experimental division. They'd invented the automatic transmission. They'd pioneered the high-compression V8. The Cutlass Supreme was America's best-selling car for 5 straight years in the 1980s. Oldsmobile wasn't just successful, it was innovative. But that was all about to change. The problem started with badge engineering. GM's brilliant strategy in the 1980s was to take the same basic car, slap different grills and nameplates on it, and sell it through 5 different divisions. The Oldsmobile Cutlass Sierra, Big Century, Pontiac 6000, and Chevrolet Celebrity were essentially identical cars. Buyers figured this out fast. Why pay Oldsmobile prices for a Chevy? Sales collapsed. By 1990, Oldsmobile had lost nearly half its market share from just 5 years earlier. The brand that sold 1.1 million vehicles in 1985 barely moved 500,000 in 1991. Worse, the buyers they did have were ancient. The average Oldsmobile customer was 62 years old in 1991 and climbing every year. These weren't people buying their first Oldsmobile, they were buying their last car, period. When they died, Oldsmobile's customer base died with them. Meanwhile, Lexus had just launched the LS400. Toyota's luxury division came out of nowhere in 1989 with a sedan so refined, so well-engineered, and so reliable that it made every American luxury car look like junk. The LS400 had a silky smooth V8, world-class build quality, and a price tag thousands less than comparable Mercedes or BMW models. Cadillac was panicking. Lincoln was scrambling. And Oldsmobile? Oldsmobile was dying. GM's response was desperate. In 1992, they greenlit a program to save Oldsmobile by creating a flagship luxury sedan that could compete directly with Lexus. No badge engineering. No parts bin special. A real luxury car with real engineering. They called it the Aurora program. And at its heart would be an all-new V8 engine that would cost GM over $1 billion to develop. Enter the Aurora V8, an engine that was technically a shortened version of the Cadillac Northstar, but calling it that undersells what GM actually did. The Northstar was a 4.6-liter, 32-valve dual overhead cam V8 that Cadillac introduced in 1993. It made 270 to 300 horsepower depending on application. It was smooth, powerful, and represented the most advanced engine GM had ever built for production. Oldsmobile took that architecture and shortened it. They reduced the bore and stroke to create a 4.0-liter displacement. The result was the Aurora V8, making 250 horsepower and 260 foot-pounds of torque. Now, you might be wondering why they'd make it smaller and less powerful. The answer is corporate positioning. GM didn't want the Aurora stepping on Cadillac's toes. Cadillac was the flagship. Oldsmobile was supposed to be a step below. So even though they spent $1 billion developing this platform, they deliberately neutered it to protect Cadillac's feelings. But that wasn't all. The Aurora V8 featured an aluminum block and heads, which saved serious weight compared to iron V8s. It had roller finger followers on the camshafts for reduced friction. The intake manifold was designed using computational fluid dynamics, which was cutting-edge technology in 1994. The engine management system was sophisticated enough to adjust timing and fuel delivery independently for each cylinder. Looking at period literature and magazine adverts, here is what I was able to piece together. GM's engineers had created an engine that was smoother, quieter, and more refined than anything else coming out of Detroit. It redlined at 6,500 revolutions per minute. It could cruise at highway speeds barely above idle. According to period testing from publications including Motor Trend and Car and Driver, the Aurora V8 was genuinely world-class. The problem was what they did with it. The 1995 Oldsmobile Aurora launched with an MSRP of $31,370, which translates to about $63,000 in today's money. For that price, you got a full-size luxury sedan with the Aurora V8, a 4-speed automatic transmission, and technology that was genuinely impressive. It had excellent suspension with electronic damping. The interior featured leather seating, real wood trim, and a premium sound system. The styling was clean and European-influenced, completely breaking from Oldsmobile's traditional look. Performance-wise, the Aurora could hit 60 miles per hour in 7.5 seconds and cover the quarter mile in about 15.5 seconds. Top speed was electronically limited to 125 miles per hour. These numbers put it right in the mix with the Lexus LS 400, which did 0 to 60 in about 7.8 seconds, and the Infiniti Q45, which was slightly quicker at 7.2 seconds. Here's where things get interesting. The Aurora V8 was smoother than the Lexus V8. It was quieter at idle. Automotive journalists praised its refinement. Car and Driver said it was as smooth as any V8 in the world. Motor Trend called it a technical tour de force. But it wasn't like Oldsmobile just built a great engine and dropped it into a competitive platform. They made critical mistakes that doomed the entire program. First, the Aurora sedan was the only car that got this engine initially. GM spent $1 billion developing an engine for one model. That's catastrophic from a business perspective. To recoup development costs, you need volume. You need multiple applications. You need parts sharing across platforms. Second, they refused to let other GM divisions use it. Pontiac wanted it for the Bonneville. Bic wanted it for the Park Avenue. GM said no. Corporate politics meant this billion-dollar engine stayed locked to Oldsmobile exclusively for years. Third, and this is the kicker, the Aurora V8 had a fatal flaw that wouldn't show up until later. The head gasket design was fundamentally compromised. The engine used a specific head bolt pattern and gasket material that worked fine when new but deteriorated over time. By 100,000 miles, many Aurora V8s were experiencing head gasket failures that cost thousands of dollars to repair. Make no mistake though, when these engines were running properly, they were genuinely excellent. Smooth power delivery. Impressive fuel economy for the era, averaging about 17 miles per gallon in the city and 26 on the highway. Performance that held its own against the Japanese luxury sedans. But the reality was simple. GM had created a world-class engine and then strangled it with bad business decisions and an engineering flaw they didn't discover until it was too late. The 1995 Oldsmobile Aurora actually sold decently at first. GM moved 45,157 units in its first full year. For context, Lexus sold about 38,000 LS 400s that year. The Aurora was competitive. The problem was profitability. At $31,370, the Aurora was priced to compete. But GM was losing money on every single one. The development costs were so massive that even if they'd sold twice as many, they wouldn't have broken even for decades. Oldsmobile tried to expand the Aurora V8 into other models. In 2001, they put it in the Intrigue, a mid-size sedan. But by then, the brand was already circling the drain. Sales across all Oldsmobile models were collapsing. The average buyer age had climbed to 67. And then the head gasket problems started showing up in volume. Owners who'd bought $30,000 luxury sedans were facing $4,000 to $6,000 repair bills at 100,000 miles. Consumer Reports downgraded reliability ratings. Resale values tanked. GM tried one last time. The second-generation Aurora launched in 2001 with an updated version of the V8 making 250 horsepower. The styling was sharper. The interior was improved. None of it mattered. In December 2000, GM announced they were killing Oldsmobile entirely. The brand that had existed since 1897 would be gone by 2004. The Aurora V8 would die with it. Total production of Aurora V8 powered vehicles from 1995 to 2003, approximately 400,000 units. Total development cost, over $1 billion. Return on investment, negative. Getting people to trust a dying brand, even with a genuinely excellent engine, was impossible. The Japanese had won. Lexus was selling luxury sedans that lasted 300,000 miles without major repairs. The Aurora V8 was failing at 100,000. Today, the Aurora V8 is remembered as one of GM's greatest technical achievements and biggest strategic failures. With approximately 400,000 Aurora V8s built over 8 years, these aren't particularly rare. You can still find clean first-generation Auroras for $3,000 to $8,000 depending on condition and mileage. Thank you all for watching another Vintage Wheels video. If you enjoyed this dive into Oldsmobile's final engineering masterpiece, please give the video a thumbs up and subscribe for more forgotten automotive stories. Until next time, enthusiasts.